Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to tackle a really interesting data puzzle. How do you actually analyze a football match that, on paper looks like it's going to be a complete landslide? We're diving into the numbers behind an international friendly between Ukraine and Azerbaijan to figure it out. So, at first glance, this looks like a pretty straightforward, predictable match. But honestly, that's what makes it so fascinating from a data perspective. I mean, when one team is such a heavy favorite, where do you even start looking for a compelling story in all the numbers?
Okay, first things first, let's look at the betting odds because they paint a really stark picture. Ukraine's odds are at 1.24, which basically means they're the overwhelming favorite. And then you look at Azerbaijan, 14.50. They are a massive underdog. So yeah, the market is pretty clear on who it thinks is going to win this one.
But let's be real, just knowing who's probably going to win isn't the interesting part, right? The real story that the data tells us isn't about the winner at all. It's about something else entirely. It's about the total number of goals we should expect to see.
And that brings us to a really key concept for this whole analysis: over 2.5 goals. Now, it sounds a little technical, but it's super simple. It's just a bet that the total combined score from both teams will be 3 goals or more. And the odds for this match strongly suggest that a high-scoring game is very, very likely.
So, if we know a high-scoring game is on the cards, how do we get more specific about what that final score might be? Well, this is where the analysis gets really cool. Instead of just guessing, it actually looks back at thousands of historical matches that had this exact same kind of lopsided dynamic.
And we're not talking about a small sample size here. The dataset is massive. The prediction we're about to unpack is built on the results of nearly 3,300 past games. And these aren't just any old games. They all fit a very specific profile, a strong home favorite with odds almost identical to Ukraine's. This gives us an incredibly powerful historical lens to look through.
All right, so we've got all this data. What happens when we actually start digging into it? Let's take a look at the patterns that pop up and see what history tells us about how these unbalanced matches usually end.
Okay, now this is where things get really juicy. Check out this chart. A 2-0 win for the home team is the single most common result, happening in over 12% of these past games. And look right behind it. A 3-0 win is almost just as frequent. The data is telling a very clear story of a comfortable, multi-goal victory for the favorite.
And we can get even more detailed and zoom in on just the first half. The pattern of dominance just continues. In more than a quarter of all these matches, the home team is already up 1-0 by halftime. A 2-0 lead isn't far behind either. So what this tells us is that the favorite tends to get on the board early and really take control before the break.
And this chart, it basically tells the whole story in one picture. That huge purple section shows that in over 60% of these historical games, the home team was already winning at halftime and then went on to win the whole thing. It's an incredibly powerful trend. When they get ahead early, they almost always stay ahead. So, after digging through thousands of old matches and spotting all these trends, what does it all mean for this specific game between Ukraine and Azerbaijan? Let's pull it all together into a final prediction. When you combine everything we've just seen, the high expectation for goals and those super common historical scores, the analysis lands on a pretty clear prediction: a 2-0 lead for Ukraine at halftime, which then becomes a final 3-0 victory.
And the data also points to other strong possibilities that all tell that same story. A 4-0 final score, for instance, is also seen as very plausible. And that home/home prediction, where Ukraine leads at the half and wins the match, well, that's backed by that powerful 60% trend we just saw. Okay, so we've got all these numbers flying around, with scores like 3-0 or 4-0 looking likely. But what's the single most confident prediction that data can give us? If you had to put all your chips on one outcome, what does the analysis say is the most certain?
Well, the source material, which is in Turkish, puts it perfectly. This quote translates to, over 2.5 total goals is the most certain prediction. You see, the surest bet isn't a specific score. It's simply that the match will have at least 3 goals in total. Why? Because while the exact score might change, the one theme that is consistent across all 3,300 of those old games is a high-scoring, dominant win for the home team.
And all of this leaves us with one final, bigger question to chew on. We've just seen a really powerful prediction built on a mountain of historical data. But in the beautiful, chaotic, and unpredictable world of sports, is the past really a perfect guide to the future? That's something to think about. And that's our deep dive into the data behind this matchup. This entire analysis was produced by the Wonna Betting Tips app. Thanks so much for joining us on The Explainer.